When my husband opened the hotel door in downtown Chicago, I forgot how to breathe. The woman standing behind him was wearing my red silk robe. And before I could even ask who she was, my 6-year-old daughter looked up at me and whispered, "Mommy, why is Daddy pretending he doesn't know us?" My name is Claire Bennett, and I was 37 years old when I learned that the person I trusted most had been living an entirely different life behind my back. It started with what I thought was a sweet idea. My husband, Daniel, had been working in Chicago for nearly 3 weeks. He told me the hotel was temporary, that the project was running late, and that he missed us terribly. Every night he called, usually after 10, usually from the same hotel room, and usually with the same tired smile. "I can't wait to come home, Claire," he'd say. I believed him. I believed him because we'd been married for 12 years. Because we had 2 children. Because I had built my entire adult life around the idea that Daniel and I were a team. So when his birthday came up, I decided to surprise him. I booked 2 plane tickets for myself and our daughter, Sophie. Our son, Ethan, was staying with my sister because he had school and a football tournament. I didn't tell Daniel. I wanted to see his face. I wanted to walk into that hotel room with Sophie holding a cake and hear him laugh. I wanted one perfect family moment. Looking back, that almost makes me laugh, not because it was funny, because I had no idea how cruel a surprise could become. The day before we flew out, Daniel called me while I was packing. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." "You sound strange." I smiled at the phone. "Maybe I just miss you?" There was a pause, a very small pause, but I noticed it. Then he said, "I miss you too." At the time, I thought I was imagining things. I was wrong. We landed in Chicago on a freezing Friday afternoon. Sophie was so excited that she kept asking me when we could see Daddy. I had arranged a car to take us straight to the hotel, and while we were driving through the city, I kept picturing Daniel's face. I imagined him pulling me into his arms. I imagined Sophie jumping on him. I imagined him saying, "You two are crazy." Instead, I was about to discover something that would change my entire understanding of my marriage. Before I tell you what happened when Daniel opened that hotel door, tell me where you're watching from right now. I honestly want to know how far this story has traveled. The hotel was beautiful. One of those places with marble floors, soft lighting, and employees who spoke quietly as if the walls were listening. I stood outside room 1418 with Sophie beside me. She was holding a small chocolate cake. I had the key card in my hand. "Mommy, knock," she whispered. I smiled. "No, we're going to surprise him." I slid the card through the reader. The light turned green. I opened the door. And Daniel was standing there. For 1 second his face showed pure shock, then something even worse happened. A woman appeared behind him. She was probably in her early 30s. Long blonde hair, bare feet. And my red silk robe wrapped around her body. The robe I had bought Daniel for our anniversary. The robe he had once laughed at and said was too dramatic. I stared at her, then at him. No one moved. Sophie looked between us. "Daddy?" Daniel's face went completely white. "Claire," that was all he said. I don't remember dropping the cake. I remember the sound. A soft thud against the carpet. I remember Sophie saying, "Daddy, we came to surprise you." And I remember the woman behind him slowly stepping back. "Claire, listen to me," Daniel said. I held up my hand. "Don't." He stopped. I had spent 12 years listening to Daniel explain things. Why he was late. Why he couldn't answer the phone. Why he needed another business trip. Why I was being too sensitive. That night I suddenly realized something. I didn't want an explanation, not yet. I wanted the truth. "Who is she?" I asked. Daniel looked at the woman. The woman looked at him. And then she said, "You told me she knew." My heart dropped. "What?" Daniel snapped. "Emily, stop talking." "Emily, that was her name." I looked at Daniel. "You told her I knew." "Claire, this isn't what you think." I actually laughed. It was a horrible sound. "Daniel, there is a woman wearing my robe in your hotel room." He stepped toward me. I stepped back. Sophie grabbed my hand. "Mommy, can we go home?" That question broke something inside me. I turned to Daniel. "You don't get to come near us." "Claire, please." "No," the word came out quietly, but it was the strongest thing I had said to him in years. "No, you don't get to explain this in front of our daughter. You don't get to touch me. And you don't get to call me tonight." I turned around and walked away, but I had no idea what was about to happen next. Because as we reached the elevator, Daniel's phone began ringing. He ran after us. "Claire," I pressed the elevator button. "Claire, answer me." The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside with Sophie. Daniel stood there, desperate. Then his phone rang again. He looked at the screen, and his entire expression changed. Fear. Real fear. The doors closed between us. I didn't understand it then. But I would soon discover that Emily wasn't the biggest secret Daniel had been hiding. I took Sophie to a different hotel. I spent the entire night sitting on the edge of the bed while she slept beside me. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I had always imagined that if Daniel ever betrayed me, I would fall apart. Instead, I felt strangely calm. Like some part of me had known for a long time. The next morning, Daniel called 17 times. I didn't answer. Then he sent a message. "Claire, you have to listen to me. Emily is not my girlfriend." I stared at the screen. A minute later, another message arrived. "Please, you need to understand what she was doing in that room." I almost deleted it. Then my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Daniel. It was an unknown Chicago number. I answered. "Hello," a man's voice said. "Mrs. Bennett?" "Yes, my name is Marcus Reed. I work in hotel security." My stomach tightened. "What do you want?" "I think you should know that your husband has been using a different name at this hotel." I sat up straight. "What?" "He checked in as Daniel Bennett," Marcus said. "But 2 weeks ago someone asked us to change the name on the room records." "Who?" There was a pause. "Your husband." I couldn't speak. Marcus continued. "And there's something else." I whispered. "What?" "The woman you saw last night was not the only woman who visited that room." I felt the room spin. At the time, I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. Marcus sent me a file. Inside were security logs, not videos, just dates, times, and visitor entries. Over the previous 3 weeks, 6 different people had entered Daniel's hotel room. 2 women, 3 men. And one person whose name made my blood run cold. My father. My father had been dead for 4 years. I called Marcus immediately. "That's impossible." "I know," he said. "Then why is his name on the record?" "I don't know." I stared at the screen. The name was exact. Thomas Bennett. My father's full name. My hands began shaking. And then I remembered Daniel's phone call from the elevator, the fear in his face. The way he had looked at that screen. I called him. He answered on the first ring. "Claire, why was my father's name in your hotel records?" Silence. Not confusion, not surprise, silence. "Daniel, Claire, I can explain." "Then explain." "I didn't want you to know." My chest tightened. "Know what?" He took a breath. "Your father didn't die broke." I froze. "What did you just say?" "Your father left money." I laughed bitterly. "Daniel, my father died in a hospital with $32 in his checking account." That's what everyone was told. My heart began pounding. "Who is everyone?" "Claire, I need to see you." "No, please." "You lied to me." "Yes." The answer came so quickly that I stopped breathing. Daniel continued. "I lied because I was trying to protect you." I closed my eyes. There it was, the sentence every manipulative person seems to know. "I lied for your own good." I whispered. "From what?" Daniel didn't answer. And that's when I knew, whatever the truth was, it was bigger than Emily. Much bigger. I met Daniel that afternoon in a private conference room at the hotel. I didn't go alone. I brought my sister, Megan. Daniel looked exhausted. The moment he saw me, he stood. "Claire, I never wanted you to find out this way." I sat down. "Start talking." He looked at Megan. I said, "She stays." Daniel swallowed. Then he placed a folder on the table. Inside was a copy of an old business agreement. My father's signature was at the bottom. I stared at it. "What is this?" "Your father owned a company." I know he owned a small construction business. "No," Daniel said. "He owned a group of companies." I looked up. "What are you talking about?" Daniel leaned forward. "Your father had a partner. That partner stole millions. Your father discovered it and was preparing to expose him." I felt cold. "Who was the partner?" Daniel didn't answer. I already knew. "My husband." I looked at him. "You?" Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "No." He pushed another document toward me. The name on it was David Bennett, Daniel's older brother, my brother-in-law, the man who had attended my father's funeral. The man who had hugged me and told me, "Your father would want you to be strong." I stared at Daniel. "David stole from my father?" "Yes." "Then why are you involved?" Daniel looked down. "Because 3 years ago I found out." My voice became sharper. "And you said nothing?" "I was trying to recover the money." "By having secret meetings in Chicago?" "No. By bringing Emily into your hotel room." Daniel closed his eyes. And then he finally told me the part that made everything make sense. Emily was an investigator. The woman in the robe had been wearing it because she had been searching Daniel's room for a hidden drive. Daniel had discovered that David was using a network of fake companies to move money. Emily was helping him track the accounts. But Daniel had made one unforgivable mistake. He had lied to me for 3 years. And while he was trying to secretly fix my father's betrayal, he had also been secretly controlling our family finances. He had sold our house, transferred our savings, and moved every asset into an account I knew nothing about. I stared at him. You sold our house? Claire, no, you don't get to say my name like that. He went silent. I stood. You spent 3 years making financial decisions behind my back. I was protecting you. No, my voice cracked. You were deciding for me? Daniel looked devastated, but I was done feeling sorry for him. Then I pulled my own folder from my bag. Daniel stared at it. What is that? I placed it on the table. Everything I found after I left the room. His face changed. I continued. I called the hotel security officer. I contacted the attorney who handled my father's estate, and I spoke to the bank. Daniel stared at me. Claire, you thought I was going to sit in a hotel room and cry? I opened the folder. That's where you made your biggest mistake. I had discovered something Daniel hadn't. The company David had used to steal from my father had been dissolved, but one of its subsidiaries was still active, and the person listed as its director was not David. It was Daniel. I looked directly at my husband. You didn't just investigate David. Daniel's lips parted. You took over the company. His face went pale. I continued. You used the money you recovered to buy the remaining shares. Megan looked at Daniel. What? Daniel said nothing. I felt my hands tremble. You weren't trying to save my father's legacy. Daniel finally whispered. I was. No, I said. You were building something in secret. He looked at me. And for the first time in 12 years, I saw the truth on his face. Yes. The company my father had built was now worth nearly $40 million. Daniel had secretly rebuilt it, and he had put one name on the ownership documents. Mine. I stared at him. Why? His eyes filled. Because your father left a letter. I felt my breath catch. What letter? Daniel pulled a final envelope from the folder. It had my name on it. Claire. I opened it with shaking hands. My father's handwriting covered the page. He had known about David. He had known the company might collapse, and he had written one sentence that I will never forget. Claire, if you are reading this, it means someone finally chose to tell you the truth. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore, but the letter didn't excuse Daniel, and I told him that. You should have told me, I whispered. I know. You took away my right to choose. I know. You lied every day. Daniel lowered his head. I know. For a moment, the room was silent. Then I said, I don't know if I can stay married to you. Daniel looked up. I held his gaze. And don't ask me to decide today. He nodded. For once, he didn't argue. David was eventually charged after the financial records were turned over. The investigation took months. The company survived, but my marriage did not return to what it had been. Daniel and I separated, not because he had met Emily. Not because of the hotel room, but because trust doesn't disappear in one dramatic moment. It disappears one lie at a time. Today, I run the company my father built. I make every decision myself. And my children know one thing better than anyone. Love does not mean giving someone permission to control your life. And if I learned anything from opening that hotel door in Chicago, it's this. Sometimes the person who says they're protecting you is simply making sure you never discover the truth. And the day you finally stop accepting their version of your life is the day you get your own life back.